Hello and welcome to Voices of the Vic podcast with me, Ben Aiton, and Mike Duffy. We're back to talk about Watford's 1-0 defeat at the Bet365 Stadium at Stoke City. Yes, Jess, you are right. Me and Mike are actually on time tonight. So stranger things have happened, but yeah, we're actually on time tonight. So we was actually chatting for about 10, 15 minutes before we came on air, so we could have got on a little bit earlier or even surprised you even more by coming on early. But yeah, we're here, we're live, and we're going to speak to you about that 1-0 narrow defeat away to Stoke City. But first, as I mentioned, I've got Mike with me. Mike, how are you doing, mate? You had a good week?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Disappointed, obviously, to lose. It's never nice losing. You'd think we'd be used to it now from the last couple of seasons, but you sort of go into a new season with all this hope and promise, and that first loss is always a bit of a sucker punch to take, and especially in the manner that we did. I'm disappointed, obviously, but there's plenty of positives to take out of it, which is more to say than the last couple of seasons. Usually, when we've had to come on and speak about a defeat, you sort of scratching your head looking around at what positives you can take. But there's definitely positives that can be taken from Saturday, and we're still sticking to how we want to play, which is good. But yeah, other than that, I'm all good, mate. How are you?
Good stuff. Yeah, no, all good, thank you. Had a busy afternoon with my father. He came around and helped me do some pointing to a patio in the back garden, which we've been putting off for a while. So yeah, been out in the sun, but trying to do that with a nearly 3 year old's very testing to say the least. She wants to get involved, and then she's bringing cement indoors on the bottom of her shoes, and she's
Mm.
driving my missus up the wall, and she's following
Mm.
around with some wet wipes trying to clean the floor. So yeah, a very eventful afternoon. But yeah, yeah, I'm all good, thank you, mate. But yeah, looking forward to talking about this game. Unfortunately, it was a 1-0 defeat. Obviously, Watford went there last year under Slaven Bilic. It was his first game in charge, a 4-0 victory for Slaven Bilic's side. And this time it was Valerie Ismail took his Hornets side to the Bet365 Stadium, but it just didn't have the same kind of feel as performance of maybe what it did under Bilic last year. Obviously, they turned up with a point to prove and wanted to try and play their way into this team, the starting lineup to keep themselves in there to nail down that spot. But yesterday it was one change to the team, Mike, wasn't it? It was Jake Livermore came in for Francisco Sirielta, who he went off with a muscle injury. It was touch and go whether he was actually going to make this game yesterday, but he failed the fitness test, wasn't available, and Livermore came in for his first start for Watford in the league. What did you make of the starting lineup, Mike? I won't run through the starting lineup because we're all familiar with how Watford have started the start of the season. But what did you make of the starting lineup, and what did you think of the bench? Because what I will mention is James Collins was on the bench, a young striker. He's done very well for the under 21s. Omar Risa knows him very well, and obviously he's part of that setup with Valerie Ismail now. So he's probably recommended him to come up because obviously we sent Shaq Ford out on loan. But yeah, what did you make of the starting lineup?
Yeah, I think I'm liking the fact that he's not really changing it unless he has to at the moment. You see teams start well like we did against QPR, make a whole load of changes for the League Cup game, and then you're sort of scrambling together again, trying to get that team to gel. And so I really like the fact that he's keeping the same team and that team's able to play more together. Granted, a lot of them played together last season, but they can execute the way that the manager wants to play. So I do like that. I think Livermore was the obvious one. We'd all heard that Sierralta may have picked the knock-up. And I think Livermore coming in was sort of a no-brainer. For what it's worth, I think he did okay. He didn't set the world alight, but he's not going to. He's not that type of player. A couple of sloppy moments, but I think bar Wesley Hoot, you can sort of say that for everyone on Saturday, sorry. But yeah, team news, absolutely no problem. I'm sure we'll talk about it sort of later on in the pod, but I just wish he'd give one of these strikers, whether it was Collins or Healy, just give him a chance because at the moment, Bio's being asked to do something which he's not capable of doing. Don't get me wrong, I think some of the stick he's got so far is unwarranted. But yesterday, it was yesterday. I keep thinking today is Monday. Mate, my head's on my arse. Yesterday proved that he's not a target man. I mean, it didn't take yesterday for people to realise that, but he's not able to play the game that Ismail wants. He might graft his socks off, but he's not well-rounded for that position. So, yeah, in terms of team news, no problem with it whatsoever.
Yeah, we'll dive straight into it. Obviously, there wasn't really much to talk about in that first half. I think scrappy is probably the perfect definition of that first half. Um, but it was a scrappy affair. But why do you think we maybe struggled to implement our style of play in that first half? Was it maybe just a case of maybe not sticking to the game plan that Valerie Ismail set in the last previous games, where he's actually asked for the teams to get the ball down and play with it on the floor? Because it was a bit different in that first half, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And I think Ryan Porteous alluded to it in his post-match interview. He said perhaps the conditions got the better of them. Not that it's any excuse, because they're paid a lot of money to play football, so a bit of wind here and there shouldn't really make a difference. But he said it was, it was telling, and the lads probably thought about it as too much, more than they should have done anyway. We know what Stoke is like, and it's a very windy ground although they have filled in one of the corners of the ground, so it's not as windy as it used to be. But we just couldn't get a foothold on the ball yesterday. And I don't think Stoke were great value as well. And I'm sure, their fans will probably be saying the same as well. And I know Alex Neil, I watched his post-match interview, and he said that, both teams sort of struggled. He sort of had Stoke edging it in the first half, which I agree. But we almost looked like we reverted back to last season. It was very scrappy, very sloppy, giving balls away, and just not being able to string sort of 2-3 passes together, which is the complete opposite of what we've seen so far. Very high tempo pressing, good passing movements. So who knows? Maybe with it being the first away league game, obviously we've played away already against Stevenage. You were there. You said it looked like we struggled to implement the same game plan as we did against QPR. So maybe on the road, that sort of style of football might be a bit different. So, but at the same time, we've got our horrendous away record at the moment hanging over us. I think I saw a tweet from Samuko saying that we've only won one of the last 11 away games, which is shocking. And you look back to the lockdown season where we got promoted. Before that crazy run we went on, the away record was horrendous as well. So, not good. And hopefully it's not a sign of things to come away from home, because it's, they might be too used to playing at home. Who knows? But it was very sloppy and very scrappy in that first half. And I thought James Morris, I'll say it now, and I'm sure other people will agree, I thought yesterday was his worst game in a Watford shirt. He just didn't look at the races whatsoever, looked very out of depth, and obviously went off with that injury as well. I was disappointed with him, but hopefully that's not a sign of things to come, and hopefully he's not out for too long.
Yeah, and talking of James Morris, it wasn't a great afternoon for him as well. He obviously had to withdraw through injury as well in that first half. Valerie Ismail alluded to that he's hoping it's just cramp and not an actual muscle injury. It's obviously sad to see him go off injured, Mike, isn't it? Especially with Jamal Lewis still weeks away because he picked up an injury in training. And then we had to put Ken Sema back over on that left hand side. But I will say, I did think Ken did an okay job. He definitely looks so much more comfortable over on that left hand side than what he has done on the right hand side in the last couple of weeks. But it's a big blow to James Morris, isn't it? Especially when he's found a bit of consistency in the first team, and then he's had to be withdrawn just before half time.
I think it's worrying as well, Ben, because obviously that article come out, I can't remember now whether it was Adam Leventhal or Andrew French that brought it out, but saying that Ismail basically only wants 2 players per position. And don't get me wrong, having a small squad is good for the team unity and everything else. But this is where it comes to bite you on the arse when injuries happen. We've got James Morris, who, he did very well last season, breaking into the first team and sort of cementing that place to be his own at the moment. And whether that's because he's the only real option we've got there. But hey, look, he's doing what he can to cement that place. But it's when things like this happen, we brought in Jamal Lewis. Really excited to see him play. Hopefully he's not too rusty from his spell at Newcastle and not really playing recently. But it does worry me that, with Morris out injured now and Lewis not available, who's going to fill in there on Sunday? The obvious answer is Ken Sema. But, that if Morris is out for a couple of weeks, you're really having to jig around the team. So it does worry me. And Sema doesn't fill me with much, enthusiasm at times. I thought he looked really poor yesterday out on the wing, out on that right-hand side where he was to start with. He just wasn't at the races at all. Picked up a little bit when he went to left back. Saw him fill in there in that lockdown promotion season as well. But at the end of the day, he's not a left back, and he does look uncomfortable there at times as well. So it does worry me. Of course it does. And, hopefully Morris isn't out for too long. I've not seen anything online to suggest whether it was a bad one or not. But
would you agree with the people on social media saying that we need another left back? Because I think that's maybe a bit too much, if I'm honest. Because there's talk that Jamal Lewis is only a couple of weeks away. James Morris's injury might not be too severe; it might just be cramp. And then we've got Ken Sema, who is versatile and who can do a job over on the left hand side to fill that gap until maybe Jamal Lewis is back. What do you reckon? Would you bring in another left back?
The thing is, if you bring in another left back, they're going to be in there as a first choice. And don't get me wrong, every player should be coming in and fighting for that position. But we've just brought in Jamal Lewis. Can I see us going and trying to get Callum Styles, for example? No, because in Ishmael's eyes, he's got that left back that he wants to play week in, week out. So he's then not going to go and be like, right, okay, get another first team left back in, because it just creates too many headaches, too many problems. I would perhaps see how long Morris is out and perhaps bring somebody else in. But I think you're right as well. To play devil's advocate, you have got Ken Sema there. Now, I know he splits opinion. I think that's fair to say. But he can do a job at left back. And I think Ishmael will sort of have that in the back of his mind.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, mate. I think it would be a bit silly if we went and tried to bring in another left back, especially with the versatility of Ken Sema. But it did end half time 0-0. Second half looks like there was a bit of maybe a word said between the managers and the players. The managers obviously wasn't happy, was he? He alluded to that in his press conference afterwards, saying that the players didn't get the basics right and didn't stick to our identity and that, and they've maybe didn't give the respect to the championship that it deserves. So second half, it looked like they came out with a change of attitude. They took the game to Stoke a little bit more, didn't we? What did you make of the reaction at half time? We obviously looked a bit more to get the ball quicker forward, much quicker.
I think it was perfect. That's what you want to see. Come out the blocks racing like that in the second half, and it looked like if we were going to score, we were going to do it straight away. And what a time that would have been to get a goal. That really would have deflated Stoke, and it would have been perfect to go ahead in that moment. And I think the frustrating thing is we've shown that it's there. So why aren't we doing it from the get-go? It's not just this season. It's not just last season or the season before. We've been saying this for a long, long time. I seem to remember sitting on this podcast in the very early days under Nigel Pearson, I think was still manager when we started the podcast, however many managers ago that was. And, we were saying, why can't we be consistent? When it always seems to be when a manager has to deliver a rocket up their arse, that's when they shift into gear. Why can't we just play like that from the get-go? So it's obviously been a culture problem at Watford, and a problem over the last few years, and that obviously carried into yesterday, which isn't great to see. But it was promising, and I think this is where we need to focus. I mean, social media was a mess yesterday. I've seen so much shit on there, and I don't know why I'm surprised, because it's Watford Twitter at the end of the day, and we get depressed about anything, So, but to see some of the stuff that I was reading, I'm like, we're 3 games into the season, for God's sake. Like, if this was game number 25 and bottom of the league just walloped us 5-0 on our home patch, absolutely, grumble away. And listen, I'm not saying you can't grumble. You pay to go and travel. It's a long way to Stoke from Watford or wherever you're travelling from. And you pay good money, and especially with how things are at the moment with the cost of living crisis, etc., etc., a day out at football isn't cheap. And you're more than welcome, if you've paid that money and you don't think you've seen a performance good enough, you are more than welcome to vent your frustration. But I think some of it is over the top. And,
I think the booing at full time was a bit unnecessary. We all
heard about
asked for a rebuild, a reset. We wanted a manager to come in to implement a style. You need to get behind the team and give them that time. 3 games in, you can't prove them off after a 1-0 defeat away at Stoke. We upped the tempo in the second half. We created chances. It was like George White just said now. Was well over the top yesterday. It's just what our fans have been like lately, and it might be down to how the football club's been run in the last couple of years. That hasn't helped, and it's added to the frustration of the fans. But at the moment, you're probably with me on this, Mike. The fans need to be patient. If it's going to work on Valerie Ishmael this year, it needs to be respected by the fans, as in giving him time. We're the first ones to jump on, going, "Oh, he's useless, sack the manager." Just give him time. I guarantee, if we give him time, we'll see the rewards. And I'm not saying we're going to get promoted, but we're going to see a side that we're proud to watch, enjoy watching, and see a team that actually gives a shit.
it.
If not, if we jump on the players' backs and start booing Valerie Ishmael when he starts walking down the tunnel, that's not going to help, is it?
No, and I think that's something to be, clear about. So many of us were desperate for this rebuild for 2-3 seasons now. Yes, it's overdue, but it's happened. We've got rid of a lot of deadwood. We still need to bring in some players. We'll talk about that in a bit, I'm sure. Yes, you could argue, why hasn't this been done already? Totally get that. But it is a rebuild. Rome wasn't built in a day, These things take time. And I think the first thing, Ben, you mentioned promotion there, and I know you're not getting carried away or anything, but the first thing that we want to see from this rebuild is we want to see a Watford team that is in unity with the fans, look like they care, look like they want to be here. That's the first step, because the last couple of seasons, we've not seen that. There's been a real disconnect between the club and the fans. So, that needs to be objective number one. And over time, in this rebuild, if you give the manager a chance, that will happen. This is the first time since the Pozzos took over. And if you're watching and you disagree, please put it in the comments. But I firmly believe this is the first time since the Pozzos took over in 2012 that they are recruiting to the manager's style. Before, it's been, right, we'll get him in and we'll bring all these players in. Oh, by the way, we've just brought all these players in. You need to sort of make it happen. You need to work with what you've got. Whereas this time, it sounds like we've sat down with Ishmael. We've said, right, how do you want to play this then, mate? The ball's in your court. Who do you want? What type of player do you want? Okay, we'll go and send Manga and co to look for that sort of player. And, people are moaning, oh, well, if Ishmael wants a particular player, we're being tight and not going after him. Again, you're more than entitled to your opinion. But if we've got Manga and Costa and all of those scouts who did a magnificent job at Eintracht Frankfurt last season, and for however long they've been there, if Ishmael is saying, right, I want a player of this profile, they're the best people to go and look for that player of that profile. Yes, he might have worked with X, Y, and Z before at a different club, but if they don't think that he fits the bill, then they won't get him. So, you know, we have to give the manager time. And like I say, this is the first time that I've seen the Potsos recruit to the manager's style. Whereas before, as I say, they're just saying, right, you're going to come in, you can play how you want, but you've got to fit these players into that system. Look, the fans forum, I can't remember. Yeah, the Parlaci Gino meeting, I think Duxbury said it was like Sarr when Javi Gracia come in. They brought in Sarr. He was a record signing at the time, but Javi Gracia, didn't play with wingers. He didn't play a style which Sarr was comfortable in. So he was sort of, square peg in a round hole. Whereas now it's, we're buying players that are suited for the formation and style that Ismail wants. So give it time. Don't boo the manager for fuck's sake. With 3 games in. But I think, Ben, to be honest, some of our fans, you can't please some people. I think Andrew French once said you could shit £20 notes and they'd moan that they were crumpled. So, you really cannot please some people. But I think there's plenty of positives to take from yesterday. Of course, I'm pissed off. I hate losing. It ruins my weekend. And, for what it's worth, I think Stoke have had one of the best transfer windows this season. I think Stoke will be up there as well come the end of the season. But listen, it's all part of the learning curve. If anyone thinks we're going to go through this season with, without hardly losing, fucking hell, strap yourself in, man, because this is a championship. Rant over.
No, I agree with you there, mate. It's going to be a tough old slog, isn't it? Look, I think many Watford fans are quite realistic and they know that it's going to be a tough old slog, isn't it? And look, I think we'll majority be happy if we get a top half finish. We know it's the change that we've had. And even Scott Duxbury said in an interview recently that this is the best team they've put together during this time at Watford. And that's down to the individuals all wanting to play for each other. Because recently, in the last couple of years, Mike, we've had lots of individual players, we've had star players, but not necessarily playing as a team. And that's what Watford fans have missed lately: that togetherness and playing together for that shirt and playing as a team. So I've seen in the 3 games that we've played this season that there is togetherness. We are playing for the badge. We're showing heart and desire, and this is what I want from my Watford team. Yeah, we lost yesterday. It's disappointing, but I still saw a side that actually gave a damn yesterday. Like that second half, there was lots of improvements. It's just unfortunate that we was undone by a fantastic strike from Vidigal. Fantastic goal. I think we gave him a bit too much space. It was Livermore trying to get back to closing down. Um, Obviously, Ryan Andrews was out of position, but fantastic strike. You can't take it away from him. But then again, what impressed me yesterday, Mike, was the goal went in, but the heads didn't drop after conceding. If anything, we responded really well and created good chances.
Yeah, we just need that final piece of the jigsaw. It's killing me. For what it's worth as well, yesterday, I don't think Loser was at the races at all. Now, whether that's because Stoke have done their homework and they're sticking, 2 people on him, that may well be the case. But I didn't think he was at his best yesterday. And Loser's going to be an important piece of the jigsaw this season, without a shadow of a doubt. Over the last couple of seasons, we were talking, me and Ben, before we come on, about, when we speak to other fan podcasts and ask who they look out for as Watford's danger man. In the last few seasons, it's easy to sort of jump on and say Troy Deeney, Ismail Assar, João Pedro. But this season, you sort of look at that Watford squad from the outside looking in, and you're almost like, okay, who is that player? This is a perfect platform for Imran Loser to step up and be the man. I think he's took João Pedro's number, hasn't he, this season as well? He's number 10. So, he's Luton fans just joined. He's obviously not bothered that his team's in the Premier League and wants to join him with the Championship chat. But hey ho,
he's had a lovely weekend not playing football because their ground's not up to scratch yet. So yeah,
well, could never be
forfeited down to relegation to.
Anywho,
before, ain't it?
but yeah, no, the goal went in, and you automatically worry, don't you? You think, shit, here we go. Are the floodgates going to open? Brilliant goal, by the way. And
Mm.
if anyone in here watched the preview with the Stoke fan that we did, Ben Rowley, I sort of highlighted Vidigal as Stoke's danger man, and he looked a real live wire yesterday. And for what it's worth, I think the defence did a good enough job to keep him at bay, other than that goal. Especially Wesley Hoot. We'll talk about him in a sec. But it's just so frustrating, the ball gets so far, and it is so clear that we need a target man. Yes, we need someone that's going to be able to stick the ball in the back of the net, but not just that. If the ball's up there, Bio's not got that capability of holding it up and waiting for others to come into play. He works his socks off. Like I said not long ago, I think
You
some of
can't
the
fault
stick
that,
he's
can you?
got. No. I think some of the stick he's got is unwarranted. Yes, he may not be
Do you
great,
think the
and
stick
yes,
he's
he probably
getting is
should be.
because of where he's came from? I just put it down to that. It's a Mogi buyout signing, and
Hmm.
that's why he's getting a stick. If it wasn't connected to that, I don't see the reaction, and maybe a price tag as well.
Possibly, but on the other side of the coin, Imran Louza was a Mogi buyout one, and at the moment, he's probably the best thing in Watford at the moment, other than Wesley Hoot. He's been fantastic, but I think you know
Do you have a man crush on Wesley Hoot?
have I got one? No, mate. I just see the last couple of games. I think he's been superb. When he come
Yeah.
in, I think he scored on his debut, didn't he, against Blackburn? I can't remember if that was his debut, but he scored against Blackburn, and it was a bit rocky. Look, last season, funk me, it was a shambles, wasn't it? So, I think anyone was sort of due for criticism that season, but I think he stepped up to the plate this season big time. And
Well,
don't
did you
forget
read
as
his
well,
interview with Andrew French?
I've not read it. No, I've seen snippets, but I've not read it in its entirety. And I think as well, considering what the Southampton fans were saying when we
Mm.
signed him, I was like, "Fuck, here we go again." Bought another
Yeah.
dud player, but I think he's been superb. But just going back to Bio quickly, I think the stick he's getting is unwarranted. He does so much hard work. You see him tracking back and trying to do it, but sometimes a player just doesn't fit the bill. Ishmael needs a target man. He's had Daryl DK at Barnsley and West Brom. Um, he's worked with Andy Carroll, who's now on the transfer list, may I add. So I look forward to the pod
Watch his
soon.
space.
Yeah, I look forward to the lowdown with Matt Lansley from Elm Park Royals talking about Andy Carroll. But no, he's had target men wherever he's gone. So, and it's crucial to have those players that play those roles. Bio's doing the hardest he can, I personally think. But he can't play that role. Maybe bring him on maybe he can be the one you bring on 60 minutes, bring him on, if we 1-0 up, 2-0 up, certainly not to chase to get a goal. He's on 2 goals already. He probably should be on probably about 4 or 5, if I'm being honest. But yeah, it just wasn't there. It's that final piece that something's not clicking. I thought Espria was all right yesterday. Probably should have scored as well. And Andrews, I love Andrews. I think he's been brilliant since he's come in. He was a shining light from last season. But twice yesterday, he took a touch when all he needed to do was hit it first time. And he could have at least got it on target. But he took a touch. And I think that's a naivety. He's not long new into men's football. This standard. So, he's sort of got a little bit of a free pass. For what it's worth yesterday as well, I might get, criticised for what I'm about to say here, but I don't think it was his best game in a Watford shirt yesterday. I thought he was quite poor. But listen, it's all part of the learning curve for these young lads. So I just think we need, for me, we need probably 3 more signings and I'll be happy. I think we need a centre-back. We need a DM as well. And we need a number 9.
I'm looking at the side, and I think we definitely need that number 9. but I think we need a bit more creativity from a midfield. Tom Delibastru doesn't really do it for me.
Agreed.
What's your opinion on him? Because he obviously had a fantastic start by scoring on the opening day within about 30 seconds. But in the other games I've watched, other than his assist for Bio at Stevenage, he didn't really do anything against them. I just see him as a bit of a passenger maybe in his starting line. I don't think he warrants a starting spot. I'd maybe rather Kone in there.
Yeah, I think. Well, it doesn't help that he plays next to loser. You know, it's like having a vindaloo and then washing it down with a chicken korma, isn't it? It's one extreme to another, and I think he I love Deli Bashiru, and he's been through hell. He's had two really
Yeah,
bad injuries. He had a loan spell at Reading where he did relatively well, and I'm glad that he's in, and I'm glad that he's not been injured yet as well. But he's not creative. He's not that type of midfielder, and I think sometimes what you need is a bit of a throwback. You don't really get them as much nowadays. I don't think anyway. I certainly like a midfielder. If you're going to have sort of a Rolls Royce of a player or a flashy player or creative like loser, you need someone next to him that's going to fucking get stuck in and kick lumps out of their midfielders. And it's easy to sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Compare when you've had someone like Etienne Capoue. They called him the octopus because he'd intercept balls from all angles, and it was great. He perhaps didn't have that dirty side to him where he'd get stuck in, but his intercepting was brilliant. But I think that Deli Bashiru, without being harsh, is a bit bland. You need someone sort of to complement Loser's style. He does okay, but I think Kone is a much better option in that midfield. I think Kone's eye for a pass is brilliant as well, and he keeps the ball so well as well. So if it's me going into Blackburn on Sunday, I would probably partner Kone with Loser.
yeah. I think Kone probably offers a little bit more than Tom Delly in that midfield.
100%
And
because, yeah.
Paul Whittenbury says, I think Kone has been great when he's got on the pitch this season. He looks to be battling really hard, and his passing range has gone up a notch as well, similar to what Mike's just said. So, yeah, I think I'll probably do a Kone for Tom Delly as well. Like, same as you. I think he's a great person. He's been so unfortunate with his injuries, which has held him back a bit, hasn't it? But he kind of got his career back on track at Reading on that loan spell, then came back, picked up another terrible injury. It's good to see that he's picked up 4 starts in a row for Watford, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
That will build up his confidence. But I just want to see a bit more from Tom Delly, and hopefully he can prove me wrong. But yeah, it was not many chances in the second half for Watford. Mike Ken Sema tried his luck from distance. It looked quite close on the TV cameras, but when they showed the angle behind the goal, it was actually maybe about 5 yards wide of the post. And then obviously you've touched upon Yassir Spreers. What's flying over your head, Mike?
Sorry, I live in Lincoln now, and the red arrows have just flown past. So apologies if you can hear that.
Can't hear it. I just wondered what you were staring at. I thought your cat's got up on the wardrobe again or
No,
something.
no, she's not in here. Thank God.
But yeah, Yassir Spreer, Mike, he should have done better with that chance, shouldn't he? He's brought it back onto his right foot, and his effort was very lame.
Yeah, I think sometimes we try and do too much, man. Like I always think of Arsene Wenger's Arsenal side that would try and pass the ball into the net, and nothing frustrates me more. If you got the players to do it, and
Mm.
you're in a position to do it. But sometimes you just need to bloody hit it, man. Like
Yeah,
Ken
for
Sema,
it.
I know that one went wide and it looked closer on the first replay, and then the second replay, the one next to the post, it wasn't as close. Ryan Andrews, as I've already said, just needs to hit it. No need for that extra touch. And yeah, listen, Aspria, I can't even use the excuse of he's still sort of trying to adapt to the English game because he's been with us long enough now. So yeah, he should have done a lot better. I think Chatvertadski was probably guilty of that as well. I think it was actually John Parslow. He's in here at the moment, and I think he replied. I'll put a video up of the penalty shot, which we'll talk about in a bit, I'm sure. But I can't
Let's talk
remember.
about it now.
Somebody said that why is he trying to take it on his right foot? Like, just hit it with your left. I know it's easy for me to sit here and say, I was sat bloody over 100 miles away with a beer in my hands watching from the sofa. So, it's all well and good me critiquing them on how they need to shoot and that, but it does frustrate me sometimes. Sometimes you just need to, old fashioned, just put your foot through it. And if you hit the target, that's all, all you can do is hit the target. Sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't. And sometimes we try and do too much and it frustrates me.
Yeah, we'll talk about that penalty incident now because I've seen a mix of opinions on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter uh, when Georgie Chapman tried to bring it back on his right foot. The same as you. If he took it with his left foot, I think he would have had a really good opportunity on goal and maybe would have beaten the keeper at his near post. For me, I thought it would have been. I would have loved the penalty, but I thought it would have been very harsh on Stoke. I didn't really think there was much in it. I thought Chapman was looking for it a little bit and kind of left his legs bare for Wilmot to take him out. What you obviously thought it was a stonewall, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought there was enough of a trailing leg and enough contacts. There were Stoke fans that replied to that tweet saying that they thought it was a penalty and they thought it was Stonewall. Look, I know people will be like, "Oh bloody hell, of course, here we go." But in the Prem, that gets given. If the referee gets a second look at that on VAR, they're telling him, "Right, mate, go over to the screen. You need to have a look at this. There is enough contact." It's very clever what he's done actually. And that might be why he put it on his right to initiate that contact. There's enough of a trailing leg that catches him. So for me, it needs to be a penalty. I didn't see the immediate aftermath of that. So only people that were there will be able to comment on it. But I don't know if there was much of a hoo-ha from the players, sort of much of an appeal. Sometimes that
Didn't
helps,
look it from the TV, really, did it?
No, well, that's what I thought. It certainly didn't look it. But yeah, for me, that's a penalty. But look, sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't. And Stoke was saying they've got away with one. I think they said they got a couple of penalties. They got given a couple of penalties that probably weren't penalties in previous games. So this sort of weighs up for them that they've got away with one, and it's sort of weighing it up a little bit. But listen, when the home fans or when the opposition fans are saying it should have been a penalty, then you bloody know well it should have been. But listen, I don't want to slag him off too much because I think he did all right. But that referee is very new to the Select Group 2, which is the group of officials that officiate in the Championship. It's the Select Group 2. The referee yesterday, I think he was called James Bell, which is quite appropriate. But he was officiating in the National League only 4 seasons ago. So whether he's been put on a fast track to, get through the levels higher, quicker, I don't know. But, it seems like quite a big jump for me. But I thought on the whole, other than that pen, I thought he had an all right game. So
It's interesting to get everyone's opinions on the penalty shout as well. Paul Whittenbury says the Stoke fans sat around. I thought it was a definite pen. I wasn't so sure, to be fair. The players didn't massively appeal. Alice Parso, aka John Parslow, says it was a penalty. Angle from behind shows that the defender took Chapmadesky's out with a high trailing leg across the knee. And then member of Voices of the Vic, Joe Thomas, hope you're well, mate. It was a Stonewall pen. I've seen it from all angles shown, and it's clear as day. The reason he didn't give it is because he threw his arms in the air going down. Yeah, that's it as well, Mike. I thought it was a bit theatrical. How is that right word? How to say it? How he went down. He did kind of throw his arms up in the air like he was shot a little bit.
yeah, and listen, these players from other leagues do, don't they? I watched Match of the Day this morning, and I don't know if anyone's seen it, but the Liverpool penalty yesterday, bloody hell, fire. I think they're still trying to look for the sniper in the stand at the moment. So, they do go down theatrically. Whether they try and sell it a bit more, I don't know. But he felt enough contact, and like I say, I thought there was enough contact, and he's going to go down and try and make a meal of it to sort of sell it to the referee.
Yes, it ended 0-0, 1-0. I wish it was 0-0,
Weird.
take a point
Yeah,
away from Stoke,
I'd have
but it
thought
ended
that.
1-0 away at Stoke City. Your personal feelings, Mike? Did you think we deserved to lose that game?
Um, on one hand, yes, and another hand, no. I think we deserve to because we don't have the right players in the system at the moment, or we're missing certain players. You know, if we had a competent number nine and someone that fit Ishmael's system, and someone that could put the ball in the back of the net, would we have lost that 1-0? Probably not. It's just that missing piece, like I say, that on another day we take two of those chances and we come away with a 2-1 win. But the bottom line is we're coming away with a victory, a defeat. Bloody hell, I'm like you now. We're coming away with a defeat, but
If
I'm
we
taking
say it enough,
positives
it might
out
have happened.
of it. Yeah. We're coming away with a defeat, and I'm taking positives from it. Whereas last season it was right defeat, TV off, fuck's sake, mood ruin for the rest of the week. They'll go and ruin my weekend again next week. Whereas I'm sort of looking to the Blackburn game now, and we're at home, and I'm thinking, we're at home. Blackburn have had a bit of a shaky start. I think they've lost once and drawn twice. I really need to research these things before coming on air. I've probably got that horrendously wrong, but I'm going into that with some optimism. I'm thinking, yeah, we can bounce back here, and suddenly then everyone's, it's all rainbows and unicorns for everyone. So that's these things happen. It's a long old season in the Championship, and it is the old cliche. It's a tough place to go, Stokies. And like I said earlier, for what it's worth, I think they'll be thereabouts come the end of the season.
Yeah, so it was a 1-0 defeat at Stoke. After three games, Watford have won one, drawn one, lost one. So on 4 points at the moment, sitting ninth in the Sky Bet Championship. Do you think the process is going in the right direction still, though, Mike?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The bottom line is we're seeing a team that looks coached. We haven't seen that for a long time. The last time I remember seeing a team that looked like they knew what they had to do. Gianfranco Zola, that first season, the football we played was phenomenal. It was brilliant to watch. Tippy tappy stuff, 1-2. You only have to look back to that Huddersfield game at home, that Batocchio goal. What was there, 18, 19 passes in the lead up to that? Some brilliant football on show. So, it's been a long time since we've looked at a Watford side and thought, these boys are drilled. These boys know what the task is. They know what the manager wants from them. And ultimately, Ben, as we said earlier, that's what we want. We want a team to look like they're giving us shit, look like they're playing a certain way, and don't look like they've just been told, this is the starting 11, go out there and try and win a game of football. A bit like we looked when Cisco Munoz took us to Leeds in the Premier League and lost 1-0. I still have nightmares of that day. But yeah, I'm positive, Ben. I'm like I said, I'm looking forward to Sunday now, at home to Blackburn, and I think the 3 points are there for the taking. And I think will be good value for them if we get them.
Yeah, we'll speak more in depth about the Blackburn game midweek because we got a preview lined up with a Blackburn Rovers fan. He was part of the podcast, but he's stepped away from it for the time being. But we've had him on a few times. I think last time we spoke with him, Mike, he was doing the podcast in his car, wasn't he? He pulled
Yeah,
over on
that's
the side of
right.
the
Yeah.
road. So he's a top lad. So looking forward to speaking to him in the week. But a new little feature we want to bring to the Voices of Vic. We're going to update you all on how the loan players have done on the weekend. So when we're doing a review on a Sunday, me and Mike will have a look to see how the loan players have got on during their loan spell at the weekend, and we'll let you know how they've gotten on. So there was a few loanees playing at the weekend. Not they didn't really do much, to be fair. Three of them played. They was all on the bench. Quadro Bar came on for Burton Albion in the 62nd minute in a 0-0 draw with Wycombe Wanderers. Shaq Ford made his Leyton Orient debut in the 77th minute against Blackpool, which ended also 0-0. And then Ashley Fletcher came on in the 77th minute as well as Sheffield Wednesday lost 1-0 to Preston North End. And also this evening, João Ferreira is on the bench for Udinese. They're currently playing Juventus and they're 2-0 down, and a certain Christian Cabaselli is playing as centre back. So that's interesting
That's
to
going
say
well
the
then.
least. Yeah, yeah, he's started his spell pretty solidly. Maybe as how he ended his Watford's career is took it over to Indonesia, but also Hassan Kamara is playing for him as well. But we don't care about him. He's Indonesia player now, isn't he?
Well, I noticed yesterday as well that Mario Gaspar didn't even get on the pitch in the second tier of the Spanish league. So yeah, things for our older players that we've departed in the last few weeks, it's not quite gone to plan for them recently.
No. And just
Cabaselli's been
quickly
booked
before
as
we
well,
wrap
by
it,
the way, Ben.
what's that?
Cabaselli's been booked as well.
Oh, okay, interesting. Get his marching orders, won't he? But yeah, just quickly as well before we wrap it up, I want to talk to you, Mike, about Troy Deeney.
Yes.
Um, he has accepted a role with Forest Green Rovers as a player coach. Um, Interesting to say the least, Mike, because of how Dale Vince is and how Troy Deeney is. I can imagine they might clash heads a few times. Um, Deeney might, yeah, literally clash heads at one point. But yeah, what did you make of all of that? He's obviously dropped down to League Two. Maybe Troy might be disappointed that he hasn't got a move higher up in the football league, but maybe he was also looking for a role which would also include a coaching role.
Yeah, look, I think yes, of course, he won't want to be playing in League Two. You only have to listen to him in podcasts. He loves a story, and he was on the Simon Jordan podcast, which if no one's listened to, I'm not just on about that episode. Go and listen to that, by the way. That is brilliant. And he was on there, and they recorded it on the 30th of June because that was the day that free agents run out of contract, and they were saying you're officially a free agent as of today. And he said that he's got some offers at high clubs and teams in sort of higher divisions. And I'm surprised, to be honest, that he's gone to League Two. I'm surprised that maybe Walsall weren't in for him. Going back to there would have been perfect for him. He had a homecoming as such at Birmingham. Big Blues fan, so went there. Didn't quite work out for him. So whether Walsall were in for him, managed by ex-Watford Matt Sadler as well. So maybe the connections there, I don't know. And I'm also surprised that Wrexham didn't go for him. Wrexham, I think Elliot Lee's scoring a lot of their goals at the moment. But, with Paul Mullin out, I'm surprised they're not in the market for a striker. But yeah, I think it's obviously come down to the fact that they've been able to offer him a player coach role. Troy's got his A licence. He's able to manage in the Championship if he wants. He's more qualified than Cisco Munoz is. That's providing Cisco's still at the same stage he was when he managed us. That might be very ignorant of me. He might have gone and got his relevant qualifications. But yeah, it's interesting. It's obviously, people wished him well and everything. And, it's ruffled a few feathers on Twitter. Look, he said what he said on the podcast. I'm not overly pleased with it. But at the end of the day, the guy scored so many goals for us and did so much for us. So forgive me for wishing him well in his future endeavours. But that's not to say I'm not pissed off at how he was. For what it's worth as well, Ben, I think up until that Filthy Fellas podcast, I think Watford were probably in talks with him about offering him a role as a coach. Because there was an article that sort of said we're looking for an ex-player to join the coaching role. And I think he didn't do himself any favours with that podcast. And I think that was the sort of final nail in the coffin, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. So, yeah, disappointing for him. But listen, if he wants to keep playing and he thinks he's as good as he talks about, then he should rip it up in League Two. I noticed they lost 3-0 and he come on in like the 69th minute. So, yeah, best of luck to him.
Yeah, I hope it does work out for him, and I do think he'll have a decent career in the football pyramid still as a coach, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does going forward. I definitely see him wanting to get into management, not
Mm-hmm.
just being a coach. I think he wants to try and give it a go as a manager. Um, I'm not too sure I'd want to be managed by Troy Deeney. But
Something I did want to say is I could 100% see. I've already looked to see when Forest Green are playing Wrexham because obviously Foster against Deeney. Listen, Foster, how Foster's getting on at the moment. Just go and check Wrexham Twitter. That's a story for another day. But I said this to my boss in the van at work the other day. I can 100% see this happening. I don't know if Foster still does his GoPros in the goal, but if he does, if he comes up against a Troy Deeney penalty and Deeney scores, I can guarantee Foster will say, "Oh, I knew what he was going to do, but there's no way I'm getting in the way of that." And then the Wrexham fans will be like, "That's your job, mate." But that's something that Foster would do, you know. Again, Foster done a lot for the club, but I think he's sold himself really a
did you
little
see
bit.
the
And
5 goals he conceded yesterday?
horrendous.
They're
You
awful,
can't
weren't
be
they?
doing that, Ben. You can't. He's conceded. I think I saw a stat. He's conceded 14 goals already at home. Is it at home? I think it's at home. And
I
in the
imagine he's on a
whole of
hefty
last
salary as
season,
well.
yeah, in the whole of last season, they only conceded 17, and they've already conceded 14. Mate, he's not up to scratch. End of.
It's every time he conceded yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, he was throwing his arms at the defenders, blaming them. And it's like,
Every
come on,
single
mate.
one. Kasper Schmeichel used to do that. He was brilliant at deflecting the fact that he just let goals in. Kasper Schmeichel's go-to signal is bollock the defenders, look at the linesman and the referee and put your hands up. He was pro at that. If you get a few minutes, go and watch goals that Leicester have conceded with Schmeichel in goal, and I bet you'll tick your bingo cards off like that.
Well, there's our little Wrexham and Castor Schmeichel chat to end the
There you go.
podcast. But yeah, thank you very much for everyone watching tonight. We're going to wrap it up there. Mike, thank you for joining. As always, it's a pleasure speaking to you. Just like the old days. Got of a lot off our chest tonight as well.
Mm.
We've seen fans criticise the players, booing the players. We've obviously given our opinions, and yeah, we don't think it's right. Just get behind the team, support them, be that 12th man. And I'm sure it will come good under Valerie Ishmael, and we'll have a team that we're proud of. So we will be back midweek for a preview for the Blackburn Rovers game, which is live on Sky on Sunday at Vicarage Road. So we're looking forward to doing that. And then, yeah, stay safe, everyone, and come on, you Warns.